If you want to take your filmmaking from amateur to pro, there's one fundamental concept you absolutely have to master: the camera triangle. What is it? It's the relationship between three key settings on your camera: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. These three elements work together to control the exposure, which is just a fancy word for how bright or dark your video is. Once you understand how to balance them, you'll be able to get the perfect shot in any lighting situation. Let's break them down. First up, aperture. Think of the aperture as the pupil of your camera's eye. It's an opening inside your lens that can get wider or narrower. A wide aperture lets in a ton of light and gives you that beautiful, blurry background called shallow depth of field. It's that cinematic look everyone loves. A narrow aperture lets in less light, keeping more of your scene sharp and in focus. Next, we have shutter speed. This controls how long your camera's sensor is exposed to light for each frame, and it directly affects how motion looks. A fast shutter speed freezes action, making movements look crisp and sharp. A slow shutter speed creates motion blur, which makes movement feel smoother and more natural. For filmmaking, we usually want to keep our shutter speed consistent to get that classic cinematic motion. A good rule of thumb is to double your frame rate, so if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you'd set your shutter speed to a 50th. Finally, there's ISO. ISO determines how sensitive your camera's sensor is to light. A low ISO, like 100 or 200, gives you a super clean, high-quality image with minimal grain or noise. As you increase the ISO, your camera becomes more sensitive, making your image brighter in low-light situations. But there's a trade-off. Higher ISOs introduce digital noise, that grainy texture that can make your footage look unprofessional. The golden rule is to always keep your ISO as low as possible. So how do these three work together? That's the magic of the camera triangle. They are in a constant balancing act. If you change one setting, you have to adjust at least one of the others to maintain the same exposure. For example, let's say you want that blurry background, so you open up your aperture to let in more light. Your image might become too bright or overexposed. To compensate, you could either increase your shutter speed or, preferably, lower your ISO. Here's how professionals typically approach it. First, they lock in their shutter speed based on their frame rate to achieve that natural motion blur we talked about. Second, they set their aperture based on the creative look they want, how much of the scene should be in focus. Finally, they use ISO as the last resort to get the correct exposure. Beginners often make the mistake of cranking up the ISO as their first move in low light, which just results in noisy footage. A pro knows to balance all three. Mastering the camera triangle is what separates the pros from the beginners. It's not about having the most expensive camera. It's about knowing how to control the light that enters it. When you understand aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, you stop guessing and start making intentional, creative decisions. Your videos will look more consistent, more polished, and way more cinematic. If you found this helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. In our next video, we'll dive into ND filters, a game-changing tool that gives you even more control over light, especially when shooting outdoors. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.